Everyone for coming. We're just going to dive right in, but maybe the first time you speak, if you want to say a little bit about what you do first, that would be helpful. So, over the past 5 years, we've seen TikTok grow into a significant source of book marketing and book sales. What differentiates TikTok from other social platforms like Instagram or YouTube?
I can go first. Yeah. My name is Charlotte. I work at Hachette Book Group. I run the central advertising team there, and I'm also running the social commerce inclusive of TikTok shop. And for me, I feel like the main things that are differentiating TikTok in the space are that readers are traditionally looking for really authentic and communicative or like conversational content. And TikTok has taken that kind of content and served it to people rather than having them self-select into it. I think that traditionally a lot of that was found on places like blogs or forums where people needed to be actively searching out book content in order to find it, and the TikTok algorithm is serving it to people organically in their feed, which is not only creating a really engaged audience, but it's also reigniting a lot of people's love of reading in a way that we haven't seen with other major media platforms.
That was a great answer. Give her a hand. So I come from a perspective. I'm Smitty. I'm a content creator. I started my TikTok in August of 2023, and I think the thing that separates TikTok from every other platform is just a community. I'm not sure if you all who here has TikTok. Raise your hand. Yeah, I'm sure you feel that community feel in terms of you follow your favorite followers, you feel part of their community. And I think that's what separates it. Also, you can start a TikTok tomorrow and post a video, and also the video has 2,000 views. And if you think about 2,000 people, that's a lot of people caring about you talking about books. And I think the way TikTok's algorithm works, one person talks about this book, and another person talks about this book, and then you have a snowball effect. For me, it's been really fun to build communities and see other creators who may not have, or may not be like me in terms of never talk about books in their past, because again, I'll be honest with you, not many of my friends talk about books, and to be able to go online in communities to talk about it, TikTok has paved the way, it continues to pave that way, in terms of making sure that you don't have to be a scholar or a librarian, you can just sit in front of your camera and talk about books, and TikTok will reward you. So.
I'm Michael. I lead the books and entertainment business at TikTok Shop. What else is there to add on? I think really TikTok, it comes down to those two parts, right? Authentic content, the authenticity of the content, creators that are really talking passionately about something that they have interest in, believe in, and then community. And TikTok, of course, recommends content to you based upon personalization, based upon what you're scrolling through in your For You page. So the more that you use TikTok, the more that the content is tailored to you. So we have all of these passionate communities for all types of hobbies, interests, passions, right? And TikTok is always learning about you so that it can feed you what is most relevant to you. BookTok is one of the biggest communities and most engaged communities on TikTok, and I'm sure everyone here is aware of how much BookTok has really impacted sort of publishing industry and setting trends and pace for readers. As of April, just this year, we have over 53 million #BookTok posts on TikTok, which gives you a sense of how much it's grown in the last 5 years, how big the community and how engaged it is. And at TikTok Shop, what we're trying to do is we're trying to harness the power of all of that content and creators and match it with readers so that they can get personalized recommendations to find what their next book that they want to read is, and then be able to purchase that directly on the app. And as of 2024, I think last year we've had over 59 million book sales, at least 59 million book sales that are coming from #BookTok content and creators.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think when we're talking about TikTok now, we're increasingly talking about BookTok, which is the organic side, and we're also talking about TikTok Shop, which feels like an entirely separate thing. So Charlotte, what was the learning curve for growing your TikTok Shop, and what has worked well for you on TikTok Shop?
Yeah, well, at Hachette, we started the process of setting up our TikTok Shop in August of 2024. We launched our TikTok Shop in November of 2024, which is a pretty tight turnaround. I think that for us, the largest learning curve, or the thing that I would tell myself in August 2024 to prepare for, would be to make sure that all of our operations are in line for a really flexible business model. And the reason for that is because the TikTok shop is applying commerce to entertainment in a way that others haven't yet. And it's led to really unpredictable book sales for us, which is fantastic, but also difficult and challenging for a supply chain. One example is that only a month and a half ago or so, we found a book that published in 1995. It was called How to Build Small Barns and Outbuildings. It sold through 5 years worth of inventory in a matter of days, just through one affiliate post on TikTok Shop. That's really exciting. It's also really daunting to put a traditional publishing model into that kind of a fast-moving platform. I think that the more that you can do ahead of time to scale to that level, to be able to respond to that kind of consumer engagement is really important for success there.
And Michael, from the TikTok side, do you have any tips for publishers looking to grow their TikTok presence?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's very difficult. It's not easy what Charlotte and team were able to do. Onboarding onto TikTok Shop in just 2 months, getting ready for Q4 and launching. And I think that what we as a platform do, we work with sellers of all different sizes. So we work with big 5 publishers, we work with indie imprints, retailers, small first-time authors that are publishing, with print-on-demand services. So we work with all different types of sellers, and we have success cases working with all of them in different strategies. If I were to kind of like synthesize and focus on the key that connects all of it, it's content on TikTok drives discovery, drives consideration, drives purchase, and that's how you build people that are paying attention to your brand and the books that you have. And so there's all different types of content strategies, but that's the core of any publisher that wants to sort of scale on TikTok, right? Whether it's working with an in-house team and you have your own content creation capabilities, or with our affiliate network collaborating with the top creators on TikTok, or with agencies, and we have tools to help each of those different models. Creating a robust kind of content strategy is the key to sort of like creating short videos and impressions, and that's what drives growth in terms of sales on TikTok.
So, talking about working with creators, Smitty, how do you decide what books to read and feature in your content, and how can publishers help make it easier for you to discover new reads?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think when I first started out, it was really just me going to the library and like browsing the shelves and trying to figure stuff out. But now it's like going to some of my favorite creators, like literally going and typing in BookTok and just seeing like what's going on there. But also seeing the posts that have like minimum likes and like seeing what this book's about. Because at the end of the day, it's like once a book is huge, like you have your different opinions with that. So that's what I do. I have my favorite creators that I go to and I look for them. I think from a publishing standpoint, I think you just hit on the head, like working with different creators. I would challenge publishing to not only look at bigger creators like myself, but like some of the smaller creators out there, like again, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. Like I was in that shoes one time, and I had one of the most engaged communities. And some of those people are like some of my favorite like people who I follow because again, they're doing it for the love of the game. Like they're literally posting, and maybe their views is like 500, 600, but the books that they're giving you are amazing. They really care about it. They want to grow from there. So when it comes to publishing, like don't just target the bigger creators, like definitely target smaller creators because you'll probably see a lot more dividends from that there.
I would just add, for our shops, exactly to what you were saying, some of the creators have seen the largest conversion rate, the most amount of their audience actually buying the books they recommend, have like less than 50,000 followers. They're all really small, but they're really passionate, and it's been really effective for us for selling. I think that's definitely a huge part of the strategy.
Yeah, and I just want to, I think it's perfectly what you just said, Smitty and Charlotte. Because TikTok is all of these different communities, right? It's not just about working with the biggest creators to get that impression. It's about each of these creators has cultivated their own following, their own fan base, their communities, right? And these are people who view the videos and trust their opinions and their recommendations. And so working with a broad and diverse range of creators is one of the best tactics for sort of growing on TikTok Shop. I have one example that I kind of want to share. There's one independent imprint who we've seen breakout success with. They're called The Lost Skills. They're based in Romania, and they are very focused on a sort of specialized subset of like herbal medicine, survival skills, self-sufficiency, and they have like a limited title list. But they've been able to find tremendous success on TikTok because they have a very targeted affiliate strategy. So they have built their own community of creators that they've worked with across multiple title releases. When they are releasing a new book, they send out thousands of samples to their top creators, right, on BookTok. We help them also curate that list. They have higher commission plans to encourage these creators to create high quality, shoppable content. And then they also make sure that they have ample inventory so that when these short videos start generating views, people start converting, we don't lose momentum from any out of stock issues or logistics or anything like that. And so with all of these pieces in place, it's hard to tell when something's going to go viral, right? But there's a lot of operational things that we can do to try and capture the momentum when things start taking off. And The Lost Skills has now sold over 1 million copies on TikTok Shop, which I think is really amazing.
Something that Smitty and Michael are keying into that we've seen at Hachette too, that I just want to mention, is that we found that a lot of times we're not necessarily, at least with the shop, selling to BookTok people or the readers. We're selling to e-commerce creators who are engaging with books, not books creators engaging with e-commerce. And because of that, we're keying into these audiences of people who just want to learn. They're not looking to read, they're looking to learn. And one of our missions in the company overall is really just to make it easier for people to learn and to discover these new audiences. And TikTok has made it really easy for us with the shops to key into these really small audiences of people who like shear sheep. And they need a book on how to do that the right way. And we have it, and we're able to match that with them in a way, like at a scale that just wasn't really replicable in traditional influencer outreach. And those would work finding our books and asking us if they can make videos, and we work really closely with them after that.
And from your side, how do you find these creators to partner with?
Yeah, I mean, Michael might be able to talk a little bit more about the tools on TikTok Shop than me, but honestly, a lot of it is self-selected with these creators. Like Smitty said, they're smaller, they have less following, so they reach out to us and say, I'm really passionate about knitting a sweater. You have a great book about knitting sweaters. Will you send it to me? I'll share it with my audience of people who love to knit sweaters, and we do, and that's kind of how they come about. There's the flip side, but where you look at people who have engaged followings who are selling a lot, and you can reach out to them too. But for us, a lot of the success has been people telling us that they're really passionate about this thing and kind of taking a chance on smaller creators with engaged followings.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think we as a platform, we create tools for both sides to help creators find books that fit their audience or their niche, and we give them tools in order to find, who are the sellers that have these particular books, and they can then reach out, message, and then ask for samples, and we call this sort of the open plan, where publishers or sellers can have samples available for these. Then we also create tools for sellers to reach out to creators, and again, filtering by what specific genre, how big the audience is, if they've done e-commerce before, all of these tools, and then send out target plans so that they can then invite creators to sort of sell particular products. And I think what TikTok really does is it provides data transparency. It gives this platform, this tool, so that both sides can find each other, can communicate with each other. It helps publishers also because previously maybe there wasn't as good visibility in terms of what's the ROI on samples, for example, right? You're sending out thousands of samples to different creators, but you really don't know who's generating sales, what demographic, etc. And we're creating all that transparency for you so that you can find out who are daily drivers, what are the top SKUs, and giving access to all of this information to help sellers grow.
It's also really scalable. Like reaching out to thousands and thousands of people at one time is a difficult task when you're doing traditional direct outreach, and using the tools on the platform, you can kind of simplify that process and reach out to more people and offer more samples and more plans and work with more creators. more easily than you would be able to with kind of direct outreach.
So there's a widely held belief that only certain types of books do well on BookTok, like romance. We're already hearing that that's not the case on TikTok Shop, but I'd love to hear from Smitty too about what types of authors and genres you're seeing flourish on BookTok.
Yeah, so like I said, I started my BookTok in August of 2023, and I enjoy romance. However, it was not my cup of tea in 2023. And I think, me starting to post about like fantasy and sci-fi, I think fantasy and sci-fi is on the rise. People who may not have even thought about reading a 1,200-page Brandon Sanderson book are reading that now, right? Because they see some of the favorite creators doing it and going from there. So I think fantasy and sci-fi. I really love the niche of romantasy. I was just talking to Charlotte about Rachel Gillick. She has a great new book
That
out.
book is so good.
It's on my list this month. And, again, like I said, I'm not big into romantasy, but like, I can see how the crossover can kind of, get more, I'd say, male readers into like romance and things like that. So I would say fantasy and sci-fi is on the rise. Thriller is always there because everybody loves a little thriller. But yeah, I'd probably say those are probably on the rise there for sure. And romance will always be, queen of BookTok for sure.
Are there any books any of you can think of that surprised you with their BookTok or TikTok Shop success, other than building small barns and outbuildings?
I could give you a very long list. Hachette, we definitely have our fair share of like stereotypical BookTok books. Like our first one was Verity, by Williams, thriller, and then Rachel Gillick, obviously. Some YA picks have done really well for us, like the Golden Fair trilogy by Holly Black, which all kind of fall into the normal box. It's a little bit of a surprise every time any of those books take off, because not every book takes off on book, not every romantasy, not every dark fantasy takes off on BookTok, but a lot of the sales that we've seen that were more surprising were actually seasonal through the shop. There's a huge aspect of seasonality to TikTok Shop we found. For instance, in January of this year, around the New Year Eve time, a lot of women's health books. In February, there were a lot of books Civil War histories during Black History Month. And then, like I mentioned, when the weather got warm, everybody needed to build their small barn and outbuilding. So that one started taking off like, as soon as the weather started to warm up. So I'm excited to see what else seasonal thing picks up. At Hachette, we also publish a lot of non-built product, notably little desk figurines. And an example of that would be the Harry Potter Dobby Christmas stocking, exactly what it sounds like. And that sold really well for us in Q4. Right now we have one called the Tiny Violin, the world's tiniest violin. You press it and it plays a little song for you. It's selling really well. Those kind of are like perennial bestsellers for us. We're really excited to see them find a home there.
Well, the seasonality component is interesting because it's also, you see it on organic normal BookTok, where like around Halloween, horror novels start going really viral. Or this year we saw the success of the Pumpkin Spice Cafe. Like books that are explicitly seasonal also do really well on BookTok because of that seasonality cycle.
I mean, I think, so outside looking and not working with publishing or TikTok Shop, it always surprises me when I see a book that goes viral or semi-viral, and I'm like, oh, this is a new book, and this book has been around for like decades, right? And like now, like, again, I can give you an example of Kindred by Octavia Butler. Like, everybody's reading that book now, right? From that perspective, because it's in my book club and people saw me talk about it. So like, it's always surprising to see that. It's always cool because at the end of the day, it's like these authors, they may no longer be here, but at least you know that their legacy is still moving on. So that always shocks me.
And almost everything that we've seen take off on TikTok has been backlist. There's obviously a place for friendlists, but all of these books that have taken off for us were published like before COVID, before 2020, and they're not new on the scene, but people are just finding them and engaging with them, and they're finding them only now rather than when they originally published. But it's been really exciting for us too.
Yeah. Well, it's encouraging to see books have like a longer life than just this expected release window.
Yeah.
I was talking to Brandon Sanderson, and he's like the creators, like book creators, we're like the librarians of the generation, right? Like we talk about books from the 70s, talk about books from yesterday, and people out there who follow us and do that, like they actually take our recommendations. And by the way, I love librarians. I'm not trying to take your job. I'm not trying to take your job because you do your job well with me. So, but it's so true. Like we are like the librarians, and obviously publishers and from there like are tapping into that for sure.
And I think it's also because new generations are discovering these books for the first time, and that's really exciting. It's the power of content on TikTok, right? Because these people are following creators and discovering these books that might have been published decades ago, but were popular then and can be popular now. And it's really exciting to see readers like discovering it for the first time, buying it, falling in love with it, and that generating more content and that sort of like snowball effect happening. I love what Charlotte mentioned about how backlist is thriving on TikTok because it's also very exciting for us when we see new titles pop off. We also didn't expect there to be such a passionate farmsteading community on TikTok, but
I have to check this out.
Everyone's passing down from generation to generation the art of building small barns out.
Yeah, but it's really amazing, and so we also like to see what comes out of people's interests and creators that are talking about specific books. I think that's one of the big advantages that also publishers with breadth of catalog have on TikTok Shop is because by listing the entire active catalog, you have people from different niches and communities being able to take out titles within different subgenres, creating content about it, and then having more people discovering it. So you don't know what's going to really resonate with people, and our job is really to identify and then help to capitalize and grow that more on the platform.
How can publishers keep up with such a dynamic platform like BookTok that's moving through creators and trends at a high rate of speed when traditionally publishing has been, I would say, a little slower moving?
I mean, I can do it from a content creator standpoint. I think doing events like this, right? And like having your publishers like be in rooms like this to not only obviously hear from these wonderful people here, but like hear from like people like me and people who are actually like creating the content. Because at the end of the day, it's like those are people who are driving these sales, right? I think before content creation, I'm not saying that the publishing industry was dying or anything like that, but like at the end of the day, like Barnes and Nobles, how many locations Barnes and Nobles open up now because of BookTok, right? So I think staying in touch with like creators and in an organic way, right? Like again, not everything has to be paid, but more like I was at a Shelves in the City event with one of the publishers, and like just stuff like that, and just staying in tune to what the creators are actually doing, what they're reading, what they want to read, what they want to see in books. Like I think that's going to be key, going forward in terms of staying up on trends.
Yeah, I think we a lot of times fall into kind of a fallacy with places like TikTok that brands or sellers are really, really different than creators and consumers. And in a lot of ways we're not. Like our job, our responsibility as publishers is to listen, is to be a part of the platform, to participate. Like Smitty said, these conversations have been happening on TikTok. They happened before we had presence. They would happen if we didn't have presence. People are identifying tropes that they like, identifying genres that they're passionate about, and having conversations about them on TikTok no matter what. And being a publisher on the platform, we're really like a provider. We're providing them with the fodder for the conversations they're going to have either way. So to me, I think the most important thing is really just being present, being a part of it.
Yeah, I think I would just add, I think we do move fast at TikTok, but we're all nice people. We want to work with all of you. But I think that there's definitely seasonality components, there's pop culture events, there's these moments that we want to capitalize on that can generate a lot of conversation and content. At the same time, I think that there's a large part of the business which is operating on a more fundamental level, which is when we see titles that start to gain traction, how can we capitalize on that, and how can we make sure that more people discover that, right? And that goes back to what I talked about content, having a robust content strategy, which is really the crux of what we do, the core of our business at TikTok is when we work with sellers and we find certain products start to go viral, certain titles are heating up, then we want to work together to figure out, okay, how can we maximize this and make sure that the life cycle extends for as long as possible and that the business is really solid. And so I think that we want to slow down sometimes as well to make sure that a hit is not just a fleeting kind of moment or a blip, something that a particular content creator made a viral video about, generated some interest, but then is gone within a month. We want to make it sustainable, and we want to make sure that there's sufficient videos, conversation about these titles that are taking over a lot of interest on the platform, and maximize that as much as possible.
Yeah, I think that's, you just hit like something really key there. Like, I know we get caught up on like virality and like 1 million views, 2 million views. At the end of the day, it's like, that's great and all, but like you said, it's a fleeting moment. And like every video that I know myself and people in the community make, like we don't make it to go viral. Like we make it to check on our community. We make it to, make sure we're just checking in. Like sometimes they go viral, yeah, is it great? Sure. But at the end of the day, it's like, you really want to step into your community, and as publishers, don't just look for the people who are going viral, look for the people who are getting those consistent views, getting that consistent engagement, getting like, hundreds of comments on their posts from that perspective, because that's how you know like the community's engaged. So like, I wouldn't be chasing virality. Like, again, it's great, and maybe I'm shooting myself in the foot here because I do viral stuff, but at the end of the day, it's like, it's not about that, it's about building a community for sure.
What is one thing you wish publishers knew about TikTok?
That they knew about TikTok. I think I'm gonna answer a question that you're gonna answer before, but I would probably say that you're gonna ask later, but we'll go with it. So I think when it comes with publishers and what I've been finding, and maybe there's like a little secret that I'm giving all the publishers here, so hopefully you're not recording this now. So what I've been finding on TikTok now is anybody here familiar with TikTok Live? Like, have you seen TikTok Live? And TikTok Live is a very interesting place at some times. However, what has been gaining traction on TikTok Live, and maybe even, if you think about YouTube or Instagram, are author interviews. Like, author interviews do really well in terms of people want to hear from your authors within your publishing house, right? Like, again, like, you have these in-person events, but not everybody can make those in-person events. And just having like a TikTok Live, and I've been fortunate enough to interview like Chris Romacchio, Matt Dinneman, who like does Denver Call Carl. I think I mentioned Brandon Sanderson, Tommy Adeyemi, Ed Winter. So like, after like I spoke with them, like their books took it off even more. Like people started posting about them because it's good for individuals who read to see the authors passionately talking about their books, talking about the creative process, and actually like seeing them as human beings. It's like, I think that's like an untapped community when it comes to TikTok and TikTok Live, because now like I see a lot more creators, a lot more BookTok creators doing it, and it's really like, I've been seeing more books take off from there, just be able to see that from there.
Yeah, we also see like a lot of our authors, and I think in the publishing community overall, a lot of our authors are TikTok creators themselves, successful TikTok creators themselves, and maybe even were successful TikTok creators before they were authors. And they're able to kind of tap into that audience that they have built in on TikTok, and advocate for their books directly to their audience. And it's a great way to show that passion about their books, and to share more information about like why they wrote it, or what inspired them, or where they're going, and things like that. We've definitely had authors tap into that before, but it's a really exciting part of the shop to be able to offer that to authors, to be able to say like, because the shop, it makes the stages between discovery and purchase almost non-existent. You're discovering and purchasing a product at the same time. And to be able to give authors the power to do that with their products is really powerful. It's been something they've really enjoyed too.
And another format we've seen, which is really successful, is authors that are doing live signings of their books. And they're answering questions from the chat room, they're engaging with the fans, asking, who should I sign this to? And I think it's really cool because it takes something that's been very offline, local, like a book signing, and transforming it into digital, global community, right? And reaching a vastly larger audience. And so that's something that we've seen authors have a lot of success with on TikTok live streaming, and live streaming is something that we're really focused on increasing even more this year.
What is the most impactful way to invest in a TikTok strategy to you? Is it creating publisher-focused content? Is it encouraging authors to establish their own presence? Is it building relationships with creators? Where would you start?
I can go first. So at Hachette, and I can probably, I know Lee mentioned this on the panel earlier too, we're grounded in this idea of understanding our consumers. And I think that's the most important part of what you do on TikTok, is keeping your consumers at the heart of it. It's a really unique platform because people really prefer this like authentic and native feeling content. You know, my job is more than just social commerce at Hachette. I oversee a lot of programmatic media, and TikTok is the only platform where the native feeling, like no filtered videos of just yourself talking about a book is what performs best in the ad creative tests that you run. Other places, like these highly designed assets and videos tend to do well on TikTok. It's this like zero production value video of you kind of just speaking your piece. So I think that like keeping consumers at the heart of what you do on TikTok and really engaging with the community is the best way to scale, the best way to make an impact on TikTok overall, just to listen, be present, and engage with them.
Again, you're not gonna get a customer out of everyone, but definitely take care of the community that you have, because that's gonna go a long way. And again, you may get somebody who's on the fence, but at the end of the day, it's like don't stray away from your actual core community, because again, like I've seen a lot of people shoot darts at the wind and they end up losing, you know, who was actually there from the start. So I think that's a probably key thing too.
Yeah, I would also say all of the above. I think, but I think it's a matter of, I know, like I said before, we work with all different types of sellers, and every seller has their own strengths. Some sellers started as creators and then became authors, and so they have a very large, passionate, engaged community, and so they create their own content, or they do their own live streams. We work with large publishers with a very broad catalog, who have in-house production capabilities, but also have the resources to work with a very large network of top BookTokers. And so I think that there's a lot of different avenues to create this content. When I say all of them, I think that there's not one particular path to success. There's a lot of different levers that you can pull on the platform. The more that you experiment, the more levers that you're pulling, generally the more success you will see in terms of engagement of the audience, in terms of sales, in terms of discovery. And so we work with all of the different publishers and sellers to find what strategy works best for their resources, for their target audience. And I think that it's an experimentation process as well to see what type of content really resonates.
Yes. A valuable source of direct reader feedback, of data that we haven't always had before. We've seen this drive a lot of recent trends like sprayed edges and special editions. So what do you think is the next reader trend that publishers need to know about that is currently bubbling on TikTok?
I think I answered that prematurely, but definitely author interviews with like creators. To be able to, as somebody who's a longtime fan of somebody, to be able to even hop in their watch party and just say thank you. Like, it's just insane when people say, oh, I'm so happy, like, because I just want to say thank you because your books changed my life, or this, that, and the third. I think that's something where that's going to drive more sales to the TikTok shop, right? Like having more creators talking to the authors. I think that's like the next thing from there for sure.
Speaking from like a non-professional point of view, I think my favorite new trend in the books industry is actually full cast audiobooks, like full cast special edition audiobooks. They kind of feel to me like sprayed edges for my ears. They're just special the same way that sprayed edges are. So that's definitely my favorite new trend. I think like audiobook is a place where we're going to see tremendous growth either way, and that's kind of hitting that nail on the head of people want something special, people want something customized, especially for these books that they're so passionate about, and these full cast special editions really hit that for people.
Well, I've definitely seen good audiobooks being turned into trending audio on BookTok that really drive sales on the platform, and the audio can actually make a book go viral, so I do think we're going to see more of that. That's a great point. From inside
for trend, I think I can't really comment, I guess, on what maybe TikTok sees, but something that I'm really excited about is lives going in a slightly different direction. Is more creator lives that are talking about the vast collection of books or conversations about books that they're reading. So we've seen seller lives, sellers talking about their own books, and that's had a lot of success. What we're still working on with a lot of different creators is more creator lives, so that we can talk not just about books that are perhaps written by a particular author, but more a general conversation, having much more engagement in live rooms there. And I think that that's something where if we can unlock not just short video content driving consideration in sales, but more live rooms and more direct conversations, then that's going to be very exciting as well.
That's great. What is a book campaign that has done really well on the platform? And maybe what are some takeaways that publishers could use to think about their own TikTok campaigns moving forward?
I mean, I've talked about a couple today that have done particularly well for us. I think one that was exciting for me personally that I haven't shared yet is this book called, it's a long title, so forgive me if I'm messing up a little bit, The Mechanic Shop Fem's Guide to Car Ownership. It is a guide to car ownership, but the author had a really substantial TikTok following, and her handle is Mechanic Shop Fem, and she found her book organically on the shop, was able to see that she could tag it in her posts, and started posting about it, and basically sold through all the stock we had of her book in a matter of days, and even since the restock has been continuing to sell it really well. So it's kind of going back into the author advocacy portion of what has been on TikTok shops, but I think it's really exciting that authors can do that authors can sell out their own books, their own videos. That would definitely be one that is notable to me.
I shared a little bit about the Lost Skills, which I think is one of the publishers that saw a lot of success. I think another campaign that we see, and this is very seasonal, is Hear Your Story, where it's basically a book about guided journals and connecting with your father or your mother and learning about their life. And this is something that we see pop off all the time around Mother's Day, around Father's Day, around holidays. Is a really popular giftable book. But this is a book that was self-published, the author shared their experience on TikTok. The videos started going viral, the product started going viral, and they sold over 2.5 million copies of the book. And I think that this is, again, leaning into that content, into that connection about why the author wrote this book and sharing their personal experience, and that generating more content is really the key behind kind of this campaign's success.
Smitty, do you have any thoughts?
I mean, the only one I can think of outside looking in that I really enjoyed was the 5th book in Stormlight, Wind and Truth, because it was a diverse amount of creators. It was creators with 100,000 views, it was creators with 1,000 views, and that team did a good job at encompassing not only the physical books, but the audiobooks too as well. And yeah, I thought that, outside looking at numbers, I thought that was a pretty cool campaign for sure.
We just have a few minutes left, so to close things out, who are some of your favorite authors and creators to follow on the platform?
I can go. So from authors, definitely Sanderson, definitely Rachel Gillett. I like Saga Press, I like their TikTok. There's a couple creators, Kristen Madden, Michael Kiss, Jay. I'm sure I'm forgetting a few, but those are some great book creators. And again, they have a wide range of following. But really, my favorite creators are the people who literally just started today, right? Like they literally just started and said, you know what? I want to sit down at my desk like I do and just talk about my passion because I've never had a chance to do it. So those are my favorite creators for sure.
I mean, Shut the Proof TikTok is pretty good. I think my favorite creators right now, and these are all Hachette creators, but Ramin Sethi just recently published Money for Couples, and his videos for that have been really great. We have one author named Carly Bodrug, who's a vegan cookbook author, and I followed her long before I worked at Hachette, and was really excited to see her on our list. And there's one more, Landon Bryant, his handle's Landon Talks. He does a lot about like translating Southernisms, like Southern US, the way that they talk, into general vernacular. And his book is really funny, his videos are really funny, he's been one of my favorites. Creator-wise, I think, obviously Smitty. But there's one creator I've been following recently who has just been forcing her husband to read her favorite BookTok books and live react to them on her feed, and I had a lot of fun watching those ones, so those have been my favorite recently.
Who's a creator?
I can't remember her name. I'm sorry.
Kind of a classic BookTok genre of video is making your
There's one
husband read your
specific you
book.
guys don't watch it, but it's a good genre overall. I recommend that genre.
My For You page algorithm is all messed up. My videos are mostly searching up what video is going viral and then trying to figure out the reason. So it's a whole mix of genres. But I guess outside of work and when I have some time to be browsing on my own, I really enjoy children's book content, because I have a 1-year-old at home, some like parenting tips, creators that are talking about that, and then fantasy is kind of my safe space within BookTok.
Amazing. I think that's it. Thank you so much for joining.